aspirants, welcome you all to Believers as Academy. In today's continuation series of the polity high yielding topics discussion for prelims 2026, we are discussing, or let's say we are bringing up with another video, the part 2 of the center and state relationships, and here we will be mostly discussing with respect to the administrative relations, mostly concerning the governor and also the president. As we have already discussed, this is one of the most important chapter for the UPSC preliminary examination, considering how many questions have come over the period of from 2012 all the way to 2025. If we have to see, there have been more than 40 to 50 questions that have been asked from this particular chapter, so it becomes absolutely important. So I hope you know the drill. So we will be summarizing the entire chapter on a topic-wise basis, and from each of the every topics we will be having 10 questions, and we will discuss all these 10 questions to make sure that you give or you get the understanding of the entire chapter. So for the first question, does the governor possess the power to reserve certain state bills for president's consideration, and what options are available to the president in such cases? So it's a very important question. It was there in the current affairs from a very long time, and with respect to what is the power of the governor in terms of handling any bills from the state legislature. Already the Supreme Court has also intervened, gave its verdict, and here we are discussing mostly about Article 200 and Article 201. So very important. So the answer is yes. Under Article 200, the governor may reserve a bill for the consideration of the president, and once he reserved under Article 201, the president may give the assent, withhold the assent, and return the bill if it is not a money bill. Means if it is a money bill, he cannot return it back for reconsideration. However, there is a catch. As a part of 200, the governor has three options. One is to give his assent. Next is to return the bill for consideration or reconsideration. And third one, which is to withhold. And also last one, to reserve the bill for the president. So here you have to keep in mind that when the governor in its very first instance returns the bill for the state legislature for the reconsideration, and let's say the state legislature once again sends it back to the governor, now the governor will not have any veto power. So he cannot return the bill for reconsideration. He must give his assent. But in the very first instance, if the governor reserves the bill for the president to consider, then as a part of Article 201, the president has three options. One is give assent, second one withhold the assent, third one return the bill only if it is not a money bill and for reconsideration. And if the state legislature repasses the bill, it must again be presented to the president. And this time president is not bound to give his assent. So the president has absolute veto power in these kind of cases, and likewise the governor, he does not have it. Very important. Next is, are there any state bills that require prior presidential sanction before introduction in the state legislature? The answer is yes. There are certain bills which require prior presidential sanction. Example, your Article 304 subclause B, where bills imposing restrictions on trade and commerce, bills affecting high courts' powers, and bills imposing taxes on electricity in certain cases, and also bills that derogate powers of the union, and also if there are any bill which are trying to disrupt the provisions of DPSPs, or let's say as a whole any constitutional provisions, right? The president or let's say the governor can reserve the bill for the president, or prior president sanction is required. So hence the center exercises pre-legislative control in the specific manner and specific matters. Third question, can the president independently reserve a state bill for his consideration? The answer is absolutely no. He cannot do it. However, the reservation power lies with the governor as a part of 201 we just discussed, and it is not the president. The president acts only after the governor reserves the bill. Fourth question, which constitutional provisions govern administrative relations between the center and state? Very important. It is the Article 256 to 263. Part 11 of the Indian Constitution, which discusses about the administrative relations, which is covering or which includes various of aspects or directions given by the center to the state and certain delegation of functions both from the state to the center and the vice versa. And we talk about all India services and the interstate coordination through tribunals and all of those things. So these articles ensure the functionality or the functional unity between the center and states. Next question, can the executive power of the union extend to matters in the concurrent list? The answer is absolutely yes. It is the Article 73 of the Union Constitution which extends the union's executive power to matters in the union list. First of all, Article 73 talks about the executive function of the union list, right? Executive function of the union under the union list. However, this can also be extended under the same article for those matters which are in the concurrent list as well, which is subject to state's executive power. However, parliament also has that extension. In fact, the executive, not the parliament, the executive. So thus execution can be centralized wherever necessary. So the answer is yes. Sixth question, which constitutional provision allows imposition of precedence rule if a state fails to comply with the union direction? So we are simply talking about the precedent rule, right? So which is the article? It is the Article 365, where if a state fails to comply with the directions of the union, it shall be deemed that the constitutional machinery has failed. And this leads to the imposition of precedent rule under Article 356. So what is the meaning? Non-compliance with the center or the union means it may trigger some constitutional breakdown, and for which the consequences has to be bared by the state through precedent rule. Seventh question, in what four circumstances, very important, four circumstances does the union exercise executive power over states? So there are four important instances where the union may issue directions to states. First is Article 256, which talks about the state's compliance with the parliamentary laws, and Article 256 also ensures that the state also ensures and gives power to the union to ensure this compliance is being met or kept by the state with respect to the parliamentary laws. Article 256. Next is construction and maintenance of means of communication of national importance. Third is protection of railways. Fourth is implementation of union executive function. So basically this is to ensure national uniformity. Done. Eighth question, can executive functions be mutually delegated between center and state? And is consent required? So there are two different important articles you have to keep in mind. First of all, the answer is absolutely yes. The delegation of function with respect to the executive powers is definitely possible, both from center to state and also state to center. However, the consent is mandatory. So Article 258 says President may entrust union functions to the state with consent, and Article 258A talks about the governor who can entrust the same state functions to the union with the consent of the union. However, mutual consent is mandatory, but also there is another instance where Parliament can legislate and delegate some of the functions, especially the executive functions of the union to the state. So here the consent may not be required, but rather Parliament legislation is important. So this is also an example of cooperative federalism. Ninth question, what mechanisms exist in the constitution to promote cooperation and coordination between center and states? So the answer is there are a few key mechanisms which are included. First is the Interstate Council, Article 263. Then we have the All India services like your IAS, IPS and IFS. We have zonal councils, which are like your statutory bodies. Then full faith and credit clause. And then we have the interstate water dispute mechanisms. Keep in mind, we are not going to discuss in detail. This is just pretty much like a revision video where we are just trying to tell you where to focus and where not to focus. Okay. Now, last question. What are the three All India services? Who recruits and controls them? And do they dilute federalism? Of course, the three All India services, all of the students who are watching this video, I'm very sure you know. And the recruitment is conducted once again by the UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, and the training is conducted under the central institutions. However, you have to keep in mind that the control is basically a dual control, both from the center and also the states. And the question, do they violate federalism? Few says, the critics especially argue that they dilute federal autonomy because the recruitment is done by the center, which is the UPSC, and cadre control lie largely with the center, which is the UPSC. However, they pretty much function within the state, right? So that is all one of the important critic, and also supporters argue that they promote a national integration, uniform standards, and administration cohesion as well. So that is all with respect to your the all India services, or let's say how the recruitment and all of these things are controlling them, right? So they are constitutionally provided under Article 312. Anyway, that's all for this particular video. I hope you have liked the video. So we will meet once again with the third part of the same center and state relationships. Please do not miss that video. Until then, see you. Bye bye. Take care. This is Madan Gopal, and have a great day.